Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode on Blaze Group Radio. I am so excited to be joining the studio today with none other than the Yvonne Tate. She has been a beautiful spirit inside of the Blaze Group community, being coined the term usher because in our Blaze Virtual Summits, she gets us together. She is always very involved, welcoming everybody into our virtual spaces. She's always dropping links for speakers. She's always dropping nuggets, as we guide ourselves through very complex, controversial, painful at times conversations as it relates to entrepreneurship, right? And so I'm so happy that she is on this episode as we talk about the foggy lens of LinkedIn. Yvonne, how you feeling today?
Good morning, Casey. I am, I am.
Ashay.
I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the honor. Thank you so much being your internet auntie
Mm-hmm.
and all things Blaze. It's a beautiful community home, and I am really glad I just happened to stumble upon it out here in these internet streets.
I'm happy you did too. And please do tell everybody who you are, right? Like what you do, what your business is, who you cape hard for. We'd love to know.
Well, I am Yvonne from Brooklyn, baby, and I am a system strategist for Black women professionals, mompreneurs, and multi passionates in law, medicine, and education. And how I support them is providing operations and technology solutions in the form of projects and VIP days.
Beautiful. Y'all hear that? Write it down. Where we'll start with this. Where can they find you, Yvonne, just so they know where to go for
Well,
all these needs?
naturally, I do have a website. It is my namesake, YvonneTate.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. I am in way too many places, but you can find me as Yvonne Tate VSP. That stands for Virtual Service Provider. So that's Yvonne Tate VSP, all one big word.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So let's dive into it. Recently, everyone, Auntie Yvonne and I had a conversation about just how murky the waters of LinkedIn are. And not that it's newly that way, but I think for a lot of followers, right? And we are all followers of those we admire, those we aspire to be, etc. Right? In the beginning, for followers, things can look so crystallized and perfect and curated, right? And as we look long enough, in certain cases, we actually see that what we've been digesting isn't sustainable at all, right? And many times it's not even the North Star that we should be following. So I want to unpack a few of those nuggets from our conversation here for everyone because it's just so powerful for followers to hear and I think be affirmed. Let's start with the myth education of imposter syndrome, a word that is being flown around, okay, everywhere. How do you feel about it, Yvonne?
I don't use that term.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give it the weight that society seems to.
Mm-hmm.
It is not of our verbiage, and I say our as a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
Who is it that determines what an imposter is? Like, according to
Mm-hmm.
who?
Mm-hmm.
When you peel back the onion on a lot of these terms and the terminology used, take in consideration the lens of where it comes from,
Right.
which is why I'm like, imposter syndrome. No, because true imposters don't have imposter syndrome. Think about
Mm-hmm.
that. So these labels that, like you said, get bandied about, I don't give that one any credence. I don't accept feeling like an imposter. No, no, sorry, does not compute. You
I
may feel you may feel uncomfortable in not having done something before,
right,
but that's not being an imposter. That's learning.
right, right. I agree with you. I think on purpose to gaslight us. We are giving tropes about the side effects of oppression, right? Like, I don't want to be an angry Black woman. Oh my goodness, I have imposter syndrome. Like, hold up, like, why are you angry? And shouldn't you be angry? And let's talk about the root of what that is, right? Like, why are they making you feel like an imposter, right? Who told you that you shouldn't be there, right? Who's overlooking you? Who thought you were the secretary instead of the lawyer, right?
Mm,
It's a distraction from the
yeah.
root. you
Not
know?
adopting anybody else's. Nah. Do give thought to, the terms that people use at you,
Yep.
and consider the source.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this is a conversation that thankfully more people are having, especially Black women. I see Black women who've used the term a lot. Start really unpacking it and putting the onus. Somebody even said this. I was reading. Shout out to Elizabeth Leba. She has a book. I'm
I'm
not
not
yelling.
yelling.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
not yelling. Right, and she in that book she talks about her journey through this term, like through understanding and adapting and then discarding that term, right? Because she remembers, I think it was college where it really started heavy for her, where she started walking around stores, like bookstores on her campus, and she's being followed, right? Or like even went to jail in the instance, right? Even went to jail in the instance because she refused to sign a paper in the store saying she shoplifted, and they just called
Right.
the police on her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her mom
For which
told her,
she
like,
was killed.
right, like, why didn't you just sign the paper?
Because
Her
she
friend,
was
why
innocent.
didn't you just sign the paper? Like, why don't you just, yeah, like, assimilate as the imposter you are, right? And yes, you're gonna cry about it, etc. And she, yeah, like she took that label off of herself, like you're saying, Yvonne, and it's just saying, like, no, the onus is on y'all to fix your hate, like the onus is on y'all to accept that are you are a white supremacist, and you are oppressing me, and I have every right to be angry and defiant about it. And I love that reframing.
Well, I mean, consider the source. Most of the time, it is simply projection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The way people react and respond and conduct themselves in certain situations, it's projection.
Mm-hmm.
When you know yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you can spot that shit a mile away.
That's right.
It's like, no, see, what you're talking about has nothing to do with me. Go sit in the
Mm-hmm.
corner and fix your shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I say. And another thing that we talked about, Yvonne, is you called it the burning building, right, of DEI. Like watching a lot of incredible Black women, smart Black women, leading Black women going into these buildings and coming out scorched, after fighting this
Hmm.
DEI fight. What's your lens on that as an onlooker, right, of what's happening?
I am disheartened for them because I know the approach that they are taking. You can't fix somebody else's problem if one, they don't recognize it's a problem.
Yeah.
Two, they don't think whatever needs to be fixed is broken. It's virtually impossible. You are operating under the best of intentions, but it's like being a salmon fighting upstream. If you do not have the ultimate control of what you're trying to achieve, yeah, you're right. It's like being in somebody else's burning house. If they're perfectly fine to sit there and smolder, they have no incentive to do better, be better, change, improve,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't impact them on that level.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to make things better, and by we, I mean Black women.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to make things better for us, which will in turn make things better for everybody, as it always has.
Mm-hmm.
That concept seems to be slipping by a lot of people. There is no downside. Fix what's wrong, it benefits everybody, except those who don't want it to benefit everybody. And that's where that status quo comes in. this, but it's always been this way, but it's not broken. I don't see the problem. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. And to be more specific about watching Black women in DEI coming into these spaces that, as I understand it from the outside looking in, these companies need DEI in order to, like, maybe maintain a certain status or to receive government funding, or
Mm-hmm.
there's some stipulation attached to that.
Mm-hmm.
It is much more in their benefit and behooves them to actually get the specific help that they need, which is going to better them in their standing, in their business, in their industry.
Mm-hmm.
But to literally not do that because you don't want to change, it feels stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It feels stupid. It's very much akin to you not wanting someone else to benefit from something that you get, yet it doesn't cost you anything. That's another one I don't understand, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not my fish to fry. I
Yeah.
try not to live in that realm because it's hard to make any progress or accomplish anything when you're working with someone who is not working towards the same end goal.
Mm-hmm. That's real, and I think I know, based on many conversations that I've been having over the last few years, honestly, like since the pandemic, when so many people made promises after the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, etc., and you can't see evidence of what happened to any of those dollars, right? We care about the brilliant Black women that we're watching go into these burning buildings. It reminds me of something that Martin Luther King said before he was murdered, right? Where he was realizing, he said he was realizing he was sending folk into a burning building, like into a house that was on fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's actually not enough. It is not enough to say you're elevating Black women in high roles, and if she's a chief equity officer, chief diversity officer, why isn't she reporting to the CEO like all your other C-suite folk? Right? Like why are we in spaces that have no budget, that have no huge workforce, that have no impact to the dollar, the bottom line, that has no bonus incentives? Like why is these periphery things that don't change the business, it doesn't change the product, it doesn't change the way people experience the product, it's not tied to anybody's compensation to hire leaders that are diverse?
One word: optics.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Like, yes, it's cute for you to say this and do it for a while because it's fashionable. You're doing it for the optics. You're being seen. You're getting this, and you're still benefiting from somebody else's pain.
Mm-hmm.
Tax write-offs, incentives, anything but doing the actual work.
Mm-hmm.
To give somebody, this is why I'm not impressed with titles, because yeah, you can give somebody a title, but if you don't give them the power
Yeah.
that goes with the title,
Yeah.
it's fluff. It's
Yeah.
like giving a title and not giving them the commensurate pay, giving them a title and not giving them the authority to operate and execute in what that title implies.
Right.
So it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not impressed.
Yeah. I think that's good because I think it means that the power is in us, right? Like if the goalposts change, if we no longer idolize things that aren't for our health and our good and the livelihoods, not just the lives, but the life. Like if we're gonna stay alive, that's good. If we can walk
Hmm.
down streets and feel safer, but if we're gonna stay alive, right? Like then we deserve to enjoy richness, beauty, peace, ease in the land of the living, right? And so changing what that looks like, right? In our households, I think is very
Hmm.
important, and then I'll swell out, right, to for
Hmm.
generations to come. Beautiful, and then lastly, kind of on the same vein, right? Something you said when we talked was that when you look at LinkedIn and what it maybe has become, maybe it's always been this way. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. But people are killing themselves to fit in, and honestly, I see that across a lot of social media, right? At all age groups, that folks are killing
Mhm.
themselves to fit in. What are some of your biggest gripes about that?
Well, fitting in general, period. Don't fit in, stand out. If you fitting in, how's anybody going to find you? How do you differentiate yourself? Um, this the, the corporate fitting in starts with the perm. Yeah, we're gonna roll it all the way back to that. The perm. Um, I remember many years ago. We're not gonna say how many because no, y'all ain't doing the math. Y'all are not doing the math on me this morning. But I remember, the perm for the corporate hair, the corporate look, and it's still a pervasive sense in professional communities. I'm gonna just go on ahead and say it. I am irritated at the Crown Act. I am irritated at the fact that there has to be one. This also goes back to who is determining what is legal, what is natural, normal. And yeah, from those who don't understand it, it might cause you a bit of confusion, but that's something for you to go work on the side in the corner. That again with the dress, with the how we carry ourselves. We are not a monolith. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that again. The good one, the acceptable appearance. And because LinkedIn is a professional platform, that can show up there as well. Because again, baggage we're carrying that doesn't belong to us. Some of us are coming around and some of us are gonna continue in the flow of the status quo, and I'm not here to debate that. You got to do, I guess, what works for you. But I've never been the type to fit in. I've always been the oddball, odd man out. Yeah, everybody else goes right, I go left. But I can live with that and stand in that. It ain't for the faint of heart sometimes. It's not. Um, but you have to have a level of comfort in yourself and trust yourself. Trust that things will work out the way they need to. Sometimes it's not always the way you think it's going to work out, but
Right,
it will work out.
right.
Um, yeah, on these professional platforms, you can't be too loud. You can't be the loud black woman. You can't be the one that calls people out on their bullshit. That's the one that they don't like the
Mhm,
most.
mhm, mhm,
Like
mhm.
you don't get to say whatever you feel like or do whatever you feel like and not have consequences. This is not a black or white issue. It's not a platform issue. It is an issue of humanity.
Right.
You are responsible for what comes out of your pie hole. Don't F A and F O, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean it's so loaded. And I wanna double click on what you were saying about the Crown Act, right?
Mhm.
Just to make sure everyone kind of understands your lens, right? So when you say you're annoyed with it, is it that it even needs to happen, that it even needs to be a thing, right?
Yes.
What are your feelings there? Is it annoyance that things are so bad in workspaces that someone has to defend themselves legally, or is it that people put together the Crown Act and fought for it in the first place? Like what's your annoyance around the Crown Act?
The annoyance is that it had to be in the first place. Our hair is history. Our hair is identity. And the fact that you feel like you need to legislate it is giving massa.
Mm,
For me, it is giving massa. Hair is hair. Hair has nothing to do with how I do my job. Hair has nothing to do with my level of education. To pick on that one specific piece of me
Mhm.
that I can no more control than you can,
That's right.
what the hell is that?
Mhm. Mhm.
Why?
Mhm.
What does that have to do with anything?
Mhm.
So it that is the thing that people land on when they can't find anything legitimate to fuck with you over.
Mhm.
Apples to apples and oranges to oranges. You've got two people with the same level of education doing the same work, and all of a sudden, one has to cut their hair, or one cannot have a certain color hair, or the hair cannot be. And this is outside the military because I know they had their thing for their reason, and I'm fine with that. But how I can't. There's at least there are too many instances to mention, but the one kid who was told he couldn't wrestle if he didn't cut his hair, and he had that
Mhm.
same damn hair the whole wrestling season. All
Mhm.
of a sudden, it's a problem. That's
Mhm.
bullshit.
Mhm.
Because there've been
So
so
many,
many
some
that
swimmers, right? Like they were getting on the sides of their swim caps because some had dreads and they didn't want to allow
yeah
it, as if it gave an
yeah
advantage. If anything, it makes your hair makes you heavier, right?
exactly.
But they still went,
But
right?
but
Mhm.
that's what it is. That's what it's about. I'm like, how can I throw a roadblock when all things being equal? Yeah.
I agree, and that's why I wanted to double click there, because I know for me, when I came out of college, I started in banking, started in Charlotte, the headquarters of Bank of America, and we had a whole week where we were taught about what was professional and how it was everybody that was hired from all over, but we had to go out. I think they sent us to New York to learn about what is professional. And there was a lot of time. I distinctly remember it because everything that was said was unnatural for my hair, right? And for my culture. There was a huge discussion about how to wear our hair on purpose, right? And they were saying that it can't be gold, it can't be red. And it was very interesting, right? Because blonde hair that is not, it was very cultural, right? You're
Oh
not talking
no,
about
don't get me
blonde
started
hair,
about the blondes.
right? You're not talking about the red hair that you call people, white people who naturally, whose hair, naturally grows in this reddish tone. You're talking to us, and you're talking about the styles that we do, right? They were talking about how men needed to make sure that their hair wasn't long and big. But this is interesting, right? Because when I went to my 9 to 5, there were men that had longer hair, right? But it just laid, right? There were so many, especially on the tech side of the company. They wore
Mm-hmm.
ponytails. It was so long, but black men couldn't wear
Mm-hmm.
hair because it was big. It took up space, right? And so to be
Mm-hmm.
indoctrinated in that way, like it is very real, right? Like the things that the Crown Act is saying no against, right? Is very real. Like I remember having mentors, right? I mean mentees, excuse me. That would tell me because that's when Gen Z was brewing too, But it would be like, my manager is telling me to take out my earrings, and I'm like, nah, you're not. And me happen to because I, in many ways, assimilated in a lot of ways, a lot of ways, right? It was over time I got more and more radical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to see these younger people willing to lose their jobs, the most money their families have ever made, to not have a random, rule against their culture was powerful. So yeah, I don't know. Being on the inside and experiencing I understand that people do what anybody, like our parents even when they used to tell me, don't drive
Mm-hmm.
in Lexington and certain parts of Columbia after the sun went
Mm-hmm.
down. They
Yeah.
were just trying to keep us alive. They were trying to survive. They were trying to make sure, food was on the table.
Mm-hmm. Another one of those instituted rules. Roll back where all this comes from, and you'll recognize one, this is not your baggage to carry. It's also not yours to fix, in spite of the fact that it does impact us. It's not yours to fix. The time that we spend trying to fix other people's problems that they don't want fixed is a waste of our energy. Build. Don't
Yeah,
try and fix other people's shit. Build your own.
I agree. I agree. Entrepreneurship is the broadest and the fastest path to wealth generation. They don't make it easy for you to understand that.
Mhm.
um, but kudos to everyone who is trying it, taking the risk, walking away from institutions, walking away from college even. So many of the most of the wealthiest folks in the land dropped out of school. These
Mhm.
white boys dropped out of school and nobody bashes them for it, right? Like they're not having to worry about respectability politics because it's assumed that their humanity is important, right? And so kudos to everyone um, who is taking risks and building what they do not see because we need you. 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 And we can build it like Yvonne is saying from the ground up without the colonialism, right? Influence on what we do.
Mhm.
Always a
Listen,
pleasure,
how many
Yvonne.
times have we done it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Since the dawn of time.
Hmm. That's
Since
what
the
we
dawn
do.
of time. Yeah. Well, thank you for this conversation today. Thank you for being a part of the community and trusting me in the ways that you have to help build you as a leader, to be a friend to you and listen to what you're experiencing and hold your hand, as well as being a community ambassador inside of the Blaze Group app. For those of you who are not familiar with the Blaze Group app, definitely go to blazegroup.io and check out the learning that you can get inside of our native app for Apple and Android. Keep it locked with us on Blaze Group Radio. Subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends about it, and we'll catch y'all next week. Love and light.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.